Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for one of our favorite shows. This week with Wendy. The one show, maybe the only show, to talk about the real SoCal estate of mind. With your host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, she looked around and said, I want to do something different. And that's when Veracity Real Estate was born. Time was right for renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels, something you don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. And through it all, she's become the data diva. She comes in every week to give us the data that we either don't want to hear or don't know. Today we'll find out, which is it? Is it stuff we don't want to know or don't hear? What is it, Wendy?
How can we judge this? I mean, data is data. It is what it is. It's not good or bad.
But we live in a world where, as they famously said, there's alternative facts now here.
No, Lord help us all. Goodness. Lord help us
I can change the facts to fit any narrative. Whatever you want to tell, whatever story you want to tell, I bet I can find the facts to do it here.
And data is exactly that. I mean, it depends upon how you frame it, how you view it, how you edit it. Right. The way you collect it, of course. I mean, that's why there's so much smoke and mirrors involved in real estate. And that is exactly why you love me. And that is exactly why I'm here.
That's true.
Because I bring market analysis you don't find anywhere else.
Yeah,
and,
really.
Yeah, and it's not just the data that I extract, and analyze, but it's also because we surround ourselves with experts. I mean, one of the ways that we provide this analysis you don't find anywhere else is because we team up with experts to bring new insights into real estate and to help flesh out what it is to be in the SoCal state of mind. So,
okay.
To this end, things are changing. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but things are definitely changing.
Well, we're always looking for hidden meaning between the facts, and you seem to find this. Like, I'm trying to find out what's the hidden meaning that both of you are wearing black today, and so am I. I don't know what.
We're just feeling very somber.
Somber or serious or chic, maybe.
Well, Kara shared with me too, and there are some really interesting market indexes that we don't talk about, and we'll talk about that on another show. But one of them is the Hanes Men's Underwear Index.
You're kidding.
Serious. I'm dead serious.
Okay.
So when men start buying more underwear, or the wives buy it for them, that's an indication that the market is becoming healthier.
Wow.
But also in times of market distress and the tightening of the economy, that's when darker colored or brighter lipsticks tend to come to the fore. So maybe that's why we're all wearing black. I don't know. Maybe it's an indication that we're sort of like in between. We're neither waxing nor waning. We're just sort of in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm all ears today. We'll see if this is stuff I haven't heard or don't want to hear. Sometimes you do it and I cover up my ears. Sometimes I lean in and sometimes I cover up my ears.
I think you're going to do both today because we have Gina Oddo back with us today. She's the senior realtor at my company, Veracity Real Estate Company, and I'm thrilled to have her back. People who have been listening to me since the beginning may remember when Gina was on towards the beginning of our show, and things have changed just a whole bunch since then.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. But Gina's very much boots on the ground, working in the trenches on the front line. So she could tell us exactly what buyers and sellers are saying these days, which informs the data. We had this sort of debate, if you will, with Jonathan Lansner when he was on the show about what is and what is not important. And when I started talking about the emotional conversations, he's like, that's not data. I'm like, correct, but it's very important. It's really important to know what the tone is out there and the emotional construct of all these people. So anyway, before we get into that, I'm going to frame the market as I always do every week. We closed out June and I just released my June market report. And a lot of what I'm finding is consistent with what we expected. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but we expected the market to cool and flatten, and that's exactly what it did. So we had slightly fewer homes sell this June versus last June, but we have a whole lot more accumulated inventory. So it's becoming the situation where people are expecting the sky to fall, but I don't think that it will. And even though the inventory is building up more than it had been, we've got 24% more than we did last year at this time. Prices aren't going to fall because we still have about half the inventory we historically would have had this time of year. But it's tough when we start comparing this year to last year and even the year before. We're talking all COVID all the time. So as of the end of June, for example, we had this year 26,481 active listings in Orange County. That was down 18% over the year before. The year before we had 32,383. That was in 2021. And that was down 22% over the year before, because in 2020 we had pretty normal 41,629 listings for the first 6 months of the year. But these are all COVID years, but the trend is very clear. We had fewer listings in 2020 than we did in 2019. We had fewer listings the next year and the next year. So we've constantly degraded the number of homes that had become available. And granted, this is the number of homes that became available publicly. We saw a 67% increase of off-market sales, which is something we talked about before. And that, in my mind, is just a manifestation of people, realtors, scrambling to get a deal because there's nothing on the market to sell. So they're door knocking and they're doing these private side deals. I project we're going to see fewer of those because they've probably already saturated that market. We'll see. I mean, they're going to continue to try, but I'm not expecting there to be as many off-market deals going. What is interesting, though, getting back to our year-to-date statistics, is we had 18% fewer active listings this year versus last year, but we had 24% fewer sales. And that may sound alarming, but I don't think it is, because last year's sales were monstrous. Last year, we had 56% more sales than the year before. And yes, the first half of 2020 was tainted by COVID, but not that much. You know, January was okay in 2020. February, March, April were scary. And then May and June were just ferocious. We had monster activity. So a 50% uptick in sales over that period that was only somewhat diminished by COVID still indicates that last year was a monster year. So net here, I know I'm rambling on. Net, we're going to have a pretty flat end of year. Inventory is going to continue to increase. Sales are going to be a little bit subdued because it's just costlier to get the money. It's more expensive for buyers, and Gina's going to speak to that. But prices aren't going to degrade. We may see just a complete flattening. There might be a little degradation of price, 1% to 2% in certain markets, but it's going to be pretty flat at the end of the year. So we're going to have to find other things to talk about. So having said that, we have gone from 7 days on the market. We're starting to see that homes are going under escrow between 35 and 50 days, which is normal. It's normal. So things are just kind of flat. So that's all I'm going to say about the market. That's all for this month. That's all for this week. Let's just move on to Gina. So as you know, every week we're asking notable names to talk about what's going on behind the scenes, because we want you to know what's going on in real estate. We want to talk about what's happening behind the numbers. And as you already know, we've talked about this. I look at the market a bit differently, and so do my guests. We're sharing what the industry knows and what the industry sometimes doesn't want you to know, but we do, because we know that your house can be the best possible part of your investment portfolio. So I am continuing the commitment of hiring the best for my team and surrounding ourselves with the best. And when a second-generation realtor steeped in Orange County history steps into a room, people listen. And that's why I hired Gina, and that's why she's here today, because we're going to listen to what she's saying. So
thanks, Wendy. Thanks for having me back.
Well, you know, I am blessed to have you, and having someone who was steeped in real estate by being surrounded by a mom and a dad who are both career veterans and in the industry means that I get to benefit from your collective experience. So having two superstars who are always top ranked in their brokerage so for years, and then you coming from this amazing giving service mindset of after 24 years in the hospitality industry makes you, I think, the perfect combination, because you're, you know, a data wonk like I am, but you're also just this big warm fuzzy. So,
oh, thanks.
All right. So given what, 7 months ago when we had you on the air with us,
Yeah.
what's changed?
Oh my gosh. So much has changed.
Talk to me. What's the most notable change that you've seen in the last, since May?
Okay. Well, let's even go back since maybe even April.
Okay.
We're definitely seeing less buyers on the market.
And yeah. Which is a good thing, right?
Right. Less competition. Correct.
Yes.
Many clients that I've had have just kind of put buying a house on the back burner, whether they're going to save more money or just don't quite qualify and are now out of the market. Or qualify for what they wanted. I think that's a bigger issue.
I agree with you.
Is that what they were able to qualify for when interest rates were in the 3s or even sub 3s, they now can no longer afford in the 5s.
And that's a tricky conversation to have with people, right?
It
because
is.
this is normal. 2 and 3% mortgage interest rates was abnormal.
Correct.
And to set your expectations on that seems unwise.
Correct.
How do you have that conversation with them?
It's a tough conversation.
How many times?
It's been one that I've had to have multiple times, and it's difficult. And with a couple of my clients, tears ensued. And that's hard because as realtors, we become close to, or I become close to my clients.
Absolutely.
I'm helping them look for their future. I'm spending a ton of time with them. We're in the car, we're talking, we're walking through 40, 50, 60 homes sometimes.
Isn't that nuts? I know.
When we were 6-7 months ago, I was doing that because we were writing offers constantly.
I remember, yeah.
And still not getting anywhere. So
Yeah.
fewer competing buyers is big for us.
So when you're having these tough conversations,
Yeah.
or when you're having conversations with any
Right.
buyer right now, are there common threads of misconceptions you're finding you're having to discuss?
Constantly.
For those of you who aren't watching
Constantly.
the videos, she's just laughing.
Yes. So
Please share.
So there's quite a few. First, let's start with the media talking about prices falling.
Right.
And I think that the misconception, and the biggest misconception that I find with clients, is that they keep hearing prices are falling, not understanding that values aren't falling. So agents that are listing properties, and the price that they list the property at is not always the value of the property.
Right. When they list it 10% below above the most recent comps,
Right.
that doesn't mean that's the value, and they may have to
Exactly.
adjust the list price.
Exactly, especially when the market's slowing down. And that conversation is hard, especially for those that haven't been out in the real estate world and purchased or sold before.
Well, and when the media says home prices are falling, how can they interpret that otherwise?
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
so basically, I know that people who are novices are like, well, someone's lying to me.
Right.
So
right.
who's lying to me?
Right.
Is it my realtor lying to me because she just wants to get a commission, or is it the media lying to me, or because there's alternative facts to Paul's point earlier.
Right. So this conversation becomes difficult.
Good grief.
So there's that. And then number 2 is usually those, let's call them armchair quarterbacks.
Everybody and their dog.
Let's talk family, friends, etc. Because usually when you're out looking for a home, you've now stopped going to as many parties. Oh, I'm going to go to our house on Saturday. I'm no longer going to be at the family function, whatever. So your family finds out that you're looking for a home.
Well, and generally they're excited too. They're like, we're house hunting,
Yay! Well, when I bought my house 20 years ago, I wrote a love letter, or, oh, I hear house prices are falling. You should wait a little bit longer. Make sure that you don't offer what the price is listed on the home.
You never offer full price.
Always, go under. Prices are falling. These sellers will be happy to have you as a buyer.
I know. Yeah, they intend well, but the information is so bad.
It is, and it's outdated.
Right.
Unless someone has purchased a home in the last 3 months, please don't listen to them.
Right. Well, and we were talking about this just earlier today, actually, that we're starting to see a critical change just in the last 3 months in terms of how you write offers, right?
Oh, definitely.
And that's nuanced to the nth degree.
Right.
So if people aren't writing offers every day, they don't know what they're talking about.
No, they don't.
So what are some of these recent changes?
So let's go back to 2020 or 2021, when the height of the market was around. When we were writing offers, you would go in and see realtors' comments, I want an offer by this day. This is the deadline by this time. Period. Done.
Right.
They would show the house Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday at 6 p.m. all offers had to be in because a decision was going to be made on Monday.
Right.
That is no longer the case. I
Thank
don't think I've
goodness.
seen a deadline listed in our MLS for a while. For
And-
about 3 months.
And
now.
that started in 2020, didn't it? I mean, like roughly 2 years ago.
Yeah, and it was because there were so many offers. And I understand on the listing agent's side, it was so that we could give you a deadline, so there aren't any looky-loos. And if you're serious about it, let's get it done. And then we can make a decision, make it quick, and move on.
Absolutely. But it was fascinating to me how many first-time home buyers are still coming and saying, okay, well, what's the deadline for offers? And we have to kind of unwind their thinking and say, that is not industry protocol. That was a moment in time. And that was just the outcome of that insanity that was that moment in time. And thank goodness that's no longer an expectation, and hopefully forever. But what other types of misconceptions are you finding you have to unwind with first-time home buyers? And speaking of first-time home buyers, what is the definition of a first-time home buyer?
A first-time home buyer is someone who has not purchased a property in the last 3 years here in California, or been on the title of a home for 3 years here in California.
So almost half the people I know are legally considered first-time home buyers.
Correct.
And that's a massive misnomer. People don't understand that.
No. I hear, well, Gina, you work with first-time home buyers. Yes. Have they been in the real estate world before? Yes, they have.
Yeah.
It just was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but the definition for financial purposes.
Correct.
For lending purposes, you can still get first-time home buyer programs and benefits and grants potentially if you haven't been in the real estate game for the past few years. And people don't understand that. And I would argue further, anyone who has owned their home for 20 or more years and hasn't participated in the real estate market in 20 or more years, functionally, they're a first-time home buyer, because we have to retrain them because everything has changed.
Everything has changed.
Yeah.
Let's even talk about, since I was here last,
Yeah.
the purchase agreement has changed.
Isn't that nuts?
It went from 10 pages to 16 pages.
And how do you feel about that?
I actually love it. I think that the California Association of Realtors did a fabulous job at organizing all of the data that's in this contract.
Yes.
And making it easier to read, easier to kind of look at when you're comparing other offers. They've made it extremely easy for both buyers to understand what they're getting into and sellers to understand what they're getting in return.
I agree. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the old or the new purchase agreement, we used to have to sift through page after page after page to find areas where we're talking about various terms that we're negotiating. And now they've changed it. So the first 2 pages have a summary of all the terms. You know, this is how soon we want to close escrow. This is how much we're going to finance. This is how much, this is whether or not we're going to have an appraisal. This is who's going to pay for what. It's all summarized up front.
And us data nerds, it's in a chart.
We do love our
It's
charts.
just so beautiful. It's so much better than it was.
Is there any mystery why I love Gina? Oh my God, this is fantastic.
But
gosh.
that's changed. And that's a conversation that I have with each one of my buyers. So anytime I meet with someone, the first time I meet with them, we talk about what their wants are, what their needs are, what their dreams are. We come back to reality. And then we go over a contract and we talk about, what are you getting into? What are you signing away? And what is negotiable?
Right.
And then let's talk about what's negotiable right now. It's changed.
It has in the last few months.
Since January, February, March, there were different negotiations than what we do now.
Well, things like cash buyers, right?
Correct. Ooh, cash buyers. Yes.
Talk to
Yes.
me.
So when we were talking about competition out in the market, I would say January, February, March, anytime I looked at a distressed home, so for those of you that don't know what we consider a distressed home,
Good point.
that's anything that really has been neglected for a while, needs to be updated, maybe has original kitchen or floors that haven't been taken care of, bathrooms that need to be updated,
More than
etc.
just paint and carpet.
Correct. Older homes, which we see quite often in the North Orange County area, that have old electrical panels from the 1960s. Yeah, you won't be able to run your air conditioning and your microwave at the same time. So those are what we call distressed homes.
Got it, right.
A lot of those homes, we were up against cash buyers.
Right, the
flipping
flippers.
market. Yeah, the flipping market was amazing during that time, and they were able to flip. If they could turn around and flip a property within 30 days and get it back on the market, they could sell it and still make a good profit. I think we're going to see less of those.
I would agree with you.
What I've seen from my last 4 or 5 offers that I've put in the last month, I'm not up against as many cash offers as there used to be.
Right. And because there aren't the cash offers, the sellers aren't being snotty and saying, waive your loan contingency, waive your appraisal contingency so I can
Correct.
make your offer equal with this cash buyer. And that was onerous and scary.
And many of my buyers did. You know,
Yeah.
the first half of where we are so far in this year, all of my buyers waived their appraisal contingency. And you know, thank you to the real estate gods above. All those appraisals came in well for my buyers, but because the market was so crazy and the appraisers were doing a great job keeping up with what was going on,
Yeah, they did have their hands full for
they,
sure.
you know what they did, and I, I did not envy them during that time for sure.
Not at all.
But now I'm able to write offers that have full contingencies, so appraisal contingencies, loan contingencies, and I never waive an inspection contingency, but
Because that would be crazy.
yeah, that would be horrible. But the commonality was appraisal contingencies. Those were waived so often, and I'm just not seeing that. My last 4 offers were all accepted with an appraisal contingency.
My most recent escrow open, same thing. We had an appraisal contingency and they didn't challenge it. And I was a little surprised, but very happy about it.
Yeah, that just shows how much the market's changing.
Yeah. Well, and back to a point you were touching on a little bit earlier, that you've got buyers that, because the market is changing so much, have just stepped aside. And have you had conversations with any of them about the wisdom of coming off the market versus just adjusting their expectations? And what does that sound like?
Yes. And I think in each buyer is different.
Sure.
You
Of
know,
course.
each one has something different, whether it's enough square footage for a family or, you know, to accommodate grandchildren that come over, etc. To, you know what, I think we just want to save a little bit more money with.
And that conversation scares me, because if they're going to continue, unless they're living with family, if they're going to continue to pay rent, rental rates are going up.
They are. And the rental market is crazy right now.
It's
you
super
can't even
tight.
find a rental.
That's what I keep screaming from the rooftops, Gina. I mean, people think, okay, well, if home values fall, which we believe they will because the media is telling us this, then
Right.
rentals will also fall.
No.
And that is not what happens. Landlords
They
need
never
to make
do.
a buck too. They have to pay their mortgage too.
Yep.
If they can get more money because of the incredible demand, they will.
Rental prices will never go down.
Correct.
They will only increase.
Correct.
They might increase at a slower pace, but they will never stop.
Yeah.
And they will never go backwards.
The only time in my career I ever saw softening in rental prices was after the crash, the 2008 crash. But even then, rental rates, they skyrocketed, they plateaued, they softened, but like between 2 and 5%, and then they took off again. And this market correction, or whatever we want to call this post-COVID phenomenon that we find ourselves in, is not a market crash.
No.
You know, so to expect that rental rates are going to go down when the cost of everything is going up for landlords is naive. And I fear for buyers who think they're going to save more money, they're actually going to save less, in my opinion.
Correct. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and that's a hard conversation to have with people.
It is.
They don't want to hear it.
But if you plant the seeds appropriately, give them the data, water it,
Mm-hmm.
then they come to their own conclusion. And that's what I tend to do, is give them as much information, as much data as possible, and then they can come to their own conclusion.
I love that analogy. You're such a nurturer. Well, and
Part of who I am.
remember when Mick and I were buying our house, and he was
Right.
dead set on Costa Mesa, preferably East Side Costa Mesa. But he also wanted a single level home, and he wanted a larger yard, and I had to drag him to go look at homes in Santa Ana, because they had the larger yards and the wide streets and the trees and everything. Are you finding that you're able to change or influence buyers who are priced out of the market that they want and show them other neighborhoods that have similar characteristics? And if so, where are those neighborhoods?
So it just depends on the client, obviously.
Sure.
But that conversation comes up daily.
I'm sure it does. Yeah.
You know, and I think, once again, going back to how I work with clients, is I'm very, very transparent. So I'll open my computer and I'll say, we want to stay within this budget, and let's go ahead and look at the MLS. See all these dots on this map? This is where your price range is.
That's so smart because I can see the concentration of dots.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to guide them through those areas as to what great neighborhoods there are. You'll find that, of course, North Orange County is less expensive than South Orange County. You'll find some of these older communities, Anaheim, Stanton's really coming up.
I know, it's crazy.
Buena Park, Fullerton. Fullerton has been on the upper echelon, but there's parts that there are some older homes in there that need some love, and you can get them at a great price.
And as long
really
as
put
we,
that love in.
to your point, you find the nicest neighborhoods within these lower cost areas. And like Fullerton, the closer you get to Troy High School, you've got super solid values. You know, so if you can save $150,000 by buying a home in Fullerton versus buying one in Irvine, you might want to look at that because that's a really high rated public school.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
there's offset here. So, and it's a balancing act, isn't it? Like
It is.
helping them adjust between, okay, is the price more important to me or is the location more important to me? Because if they have to be in this location for work or medical facilities or a religious facility or whatever, they may have to come out of the single family mindset into the condo mindset.
Which I have that conversation quite often.
What does that look like?
So it's an interesting conversation. I think that it's really getting rid of that stigma that a condo or townhome is not as good as a single family residence.
Right.
And it's really getting away from that stigma because there are great possibilities with that. I mean, here you can have a townhome or a condo that includes a pool and a gym and a clubhouse and, you know, a steam room or whatever, and a community without having to put that in your single family home.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to pay for replacing a roof. That's big.
And something else too is if we're talking to buyers who are priced out of the single family home, they're having to settle for a condo or, you know, some sort of communal living, which is their second choice. Something that blows most people's minds is when we do a rental survey and we say, here's the plan. You're going to live in this house for 2 or 3 years. You're going to build some equity. And when the market looks right, we're going to step you up into a larger home. When we look back at this attached home or condo or townhome or whatever it is, there is very little difference, if any, in the rental market between a 2 or 3 bedroom condo versus a 2 or 3 bedroom detached home.
100%.
It's shocking. So it makes a really, really good rental for them if they decide not to sell it, perhaps just pull some equity out of it, put a renter in there. That's part of their retirement savings now. It's a smart plan.
It is.
So
It's a great way to start.
we need people to take a look at this. Okay, so something else that I'm seeing and hearing, and I'm wondering if you're seeing it on the front lines, is that because Wall Street investments are starting to degrade and it's getting rockier there, people are losing money on those investments. John Doe everyday homeowner is starting to compete and pick up rental properties in these affordable markets. Not necessarily with cash, but they're competing with occupying buyers. Are you seeing that or are you aware of that?
You know, it's a little bit harder for me to discern that, but I am seeing less competition in that aspect.
Yeah.
We're just seeing less competition all the way around.
Yeah.
Where I was competing against, you know, I think the highest number I heard was 134 offers for one property.
Wow.
We're now in the 5 to 10 range.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. In my last open house for the listing in Irvine that's listed at $1,859,000, 2 out of 3 buyers that came through were investors. But it's Irvine.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we're always going to see that. There are certain neighborhoods where certain people just, they want to have rentals there. All right, so we need to go to break. So I'm going to have Paul take us away and we'll come back with just a few more questions.
Okay, well, let's remind everybody that as you prove each and every week, you get a great list of partners that you talk to, and one of them is your sponsor today, Ford & DiIulio. Ford & DiIulio is an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys from the big law firms. So you get small-time law firm personal care with big law firm experience. Partners who founded the company did so on what they call aligned interests, where they're trying to get the best result for you, not just trying to get the biggest bill for them. where they're rewarded for being efficient and effective, and where they engage in the relentless pursuit of their clients' goals, whether that's in litigation, mediation, or even trial. Benny, that's what you're looking for. There's one place to find it, FordDiulio.com, just like it sounds, FORDDIULIO, FordDiulio.com. So many things to ask about
I
here
knew
today.
it. I knew it.
You said the market's kind of, in the last few weeks, Wendy, has crested. Maybe it's kind of plateaued a little bit.
Yes.
You seeing that on the front line, and how are people reacting to that? Fear, or okay, back to something safe and sound? Because some people are sort of afraid I missed it, I didn't sell in time, or I didn't buy in time, or whatever, and then that creates a counter rush. Oh my God, the sky's falling. We can't seem to keep it even. It's always got to either be going up or down. What do you think out there, Gina? What are you seeing? How do people react? Are they seeing it plateau, and how are they reacting to that?
It's interesting. I think sellers are just having to learn to be a little bit more patient. Instead of selling in one weekend of open houses, they now are understanding that we have to actually do this multiple times, and that offers are going to come in a little bit more slowly. So you have time to wait, but take that time to wait. And that's just an education process. And I think the more we go into July, because they've been seeing this happening in June, now in July, they're understanding that and being more patient. I think from the buyer's side, I think they have to understand, once again, we're not talking about prices crashing.
Right.
And I have to, once again, explain the value of the home is still there. So it still is.
It's just not increasing like crazy.
Correct. Or buyers aren't offering, 20% over asking
Wasn't that
price.
nuts? I've
or
never
over
seen that.
value. I mean, I would have to have that conversation. How much money do you have put aside besides your down payment and your closing costs that you're willing to spend to pay for that appraisal gap? That means from where the house appraises and what you've offered.
Right.
How much do you have there? Because we need to really analyze that and make sure you have enough in the bank.
Yep. And that was a conversation we had to have with everyone at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Paul, I think for buyers, it's a bit of a relief. And for sellers, it's a bit of disbelief, because they want to believe that the gravy train was going to keep going, which was naive. And I had to have a really blunt conversation with the seller of the Irvine property I mentioned a moment ago. And he goes, Wendy, I need you to sell this house this weekend. And I said, I am not promising you I will sell your house this weekend, because that ship has sailed. I will sell your house for sure, but do not expect it to happen this weekend. So, that.
And what did we care if it sold in 1 weekend or 2 weeks? I mean, I understand you don't want to go on a year,
Sure.
or 6 months maybe even, but a couple of weeks, what's so bad about that?
I ask the same question. We just have to hold people's hands and tell them the truth and manage their expectations. That's our job as fiduciaries.
Let me give you one more here, because I'm old enough to remember the last great inflationary period we had in the Carter years, under the late 70s into the 80s, when suddenly $50,000 wasn't a lot of money for a house, for a salary, for a car. When I was a kid, there was a period their cars were, you could get a car for $5,000, you could get a house for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, because you made $50,000 if you had a really good salary.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it jumped.
Right.
And we all kind of thought, well, this is weird. And then it never sort of came back. Houses never got cheaper. Gas never got cheaper. Cars never got cheaper. And then it sort of stayed that way for a long time. And then we seem to be where suddenly there's been a big jump suddenly.
Right.
Gas jumped up. Houses jumped up. Salaries have jumped up for some people. Not for everybody. But,
Right.
Even starting wages and stuff have jumped up. Is that just something that happens every so often? There's a jump and then it sort of levels off for a number of years, and then it...
I really think that depends upon geography, because there are areas like the Midwest and the Rust Belt, if you will, that had a serious degradation of values. And it wasn't cyclical with the economy overall as much as it was tied to industry that simply went away.
Yeah, right.
So
Detroit, where I came from.
Exactly, my point. So, but here in Orange County, we've got a little bit more diversification of our income and our economy. And we also have a bit of a resort factor too. I mean, a lot
Yes.
of people have second homes and vacation homes here. So I don't think we're going to have as many of those big swings. But yes, I mean, there are going to be surges in home values. And because we had such an amazing surge, and because we're heading into the R word, it was something recession-like.
Right.
Recession light, I think was what Rick Sharga called it, which I thought was hilarious. We're heading into this. That's why I believe that home prices and home values are going to plateau for a while. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, a home is not a piggy bank. A home is a home. You know, it's a huge investment in your
Yes.
future. And it does stabilize your housing cost, which in areas like ours, where rental rates continue to go up, is a smart thing, especially as we head into otherwise uncertain financial times.
So last question, what is different this time than 2008? 2008 was the one that scared the poop out of all of us.
Sure.
My house did drop from, I think, in half or 40% or something. Now, I had bought it much lower, so I wasn't in trouble. And the minute that happened, there were people who were upside down and started giving them back to the bank. We haven't seen that phenomenon.
You
where
just
people are
you just
turning-
named it. It's because people were upside down.
Yeah.
You know, and now even if there is some reduction in values, which I don't predict, but even if there is, everyone has equity.
Right.
Everyone has equity. The only zero down loans that are even available these days are through the Veterans Administration, and we're not seeing people do that. We're just not. I mean, during COVID, they couldn't go anywhere, so they squirreled away their pennies, and they had a down payment.
So they had very little into it. Suddenly they're upside down, and
Mm-hmm.
they just walked away from it. And that just seemed to accelerate the herd mentality.
It
So
totally did. Yeah. People were over leveraged thinking I can max out my credit cards. I can lease my car. I can have this maximum housing payment
Right.
that is going to adjust next year, but I don't care. I'll just refinance it because that's always going to be available to me. All of those people who are living, beyond their means suddenly were faced with everything coming tumbling down, and they had no choice but to sell. There was no alternative.
Right.
And we don't have that now. I mean, if people are reaching financial straits for one reason or another, they can put their home on the market and they can sell it and they can walk away with a little cash in their pocket.
Right.
It's diametrically opposed to the last downturn.
Right. Okay.
It really is. But you all know, I love sometimes ripping off the Band-Aid and disclosing some of the dirty little secrets.
Sometimes, all
the
the time.
shenanigans in our industry.
shenanigans.
The
I like that.
shenanigans. So I just want to ask Gina, what kind of behaviors are you seeing from sellers' agents that might be either hurting deals or just confusing the situation?
Oh, let's start with the biggest one, where agents are listing properties completely undervalue.
Oh, my favorite.
Undervalue. You would think that they're all just
no.
doubling it and saying, let's just shoot for the moon here.
No, not at all. They want those. They know that the median price has rised this last year, right? And they know that many people have been priced out of the market. So therefore, let's go ahead and list this house at a much lower than value price so that I can get the attention of now a larger sect of buyers, get them to come through, fall in love, and write offers.
Didn't you see one that was really market value around 800 something and they listed it for 6 something?
Yes.
Right?
Multiple times.
Right.
And why?
That is not the only one.
So they're-
I may have talked to you
They're
about that
creating
one.
a stampede.
So
there
they are
multiple-
creating a stampede for them, but the poor seller is paying for this marketing trick.
It's not selling in the 6s. It's creating competition.
Right. That's what it's doing.
And then you look like you're a hero because I got over list price
Boom.
Right. And 40 offers
and 40 offers.
in a market that where you should be getting 10.
Right.
You
But then
know?
this agent gets to go and brag to the next person
Right.
he's trying to get to sign on the X.
Right.
Well, I
I
had
see.
40 offers and I sold well above list price. Well,
Right.
yeah, because you deliberately underpriced it. You
Yes.
Yahoo, you.
And then we have to go through, I have to go through that process for my buyers who now have fallen in love with this home that they think is affordable to them and explain to them, no, the value is $200,000 over what you think it is.
And just like Paul was
And
like,
break their
that's
heart.
incomprehensible. This makes no sense to me. So again, we've got buyers that don't believe us. Yeah.
So it's sort of like the what retailers did for years. I think they finally put laws up against this fake price,
Bait and switch.
bait and switch. There's one at this price, but it's really not that price.
That is correct.
And you all rush in and you go, this
Yeah.
is just a trick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I
Yes.
know in luxury markets, I am still seeing a whole lot of listing agents pulling shenanigans to make sure that only their buyers' offers get in front of the sellers. Are you seeing that too, Gina?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that too. And once again, we touched on it before, the off-market listings.
Ugh.
Especially in certain areas. There are certain areas, like, let me just tell you, the first one that comes to mind is the Hill in Seal Beach. You can't even find a listing in there because it's all pocket listings.
Yes.
It is all pocket listings.
And why? Just because they're affluent and they don't want people going through their houses here, so they convince them, I'll find you the deal. You don't have to have anybody know you're selling and come to your
not
house.
at all. It's all about scarcity.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't find it. Oh, because everybody's pocket listing.
Yeah.
So there are no listings in the Hill that you see on the MLS are open to the public. So an agent lists it, doesn't even list it, keeps it quiet, and then he has already 25 buyers because he's a specialist in this area, and then sells it to one of his clients and double ends a deal,
Right.
which is Wendy and I is like
Yeah, well, I fell for that trick.
huge nerve for both of us. That's a difficult nerve for both of us.
But why do they convince the buyer, the seller, that that's a good idea? Why? You walk into my house, some area called the Hill. I don't know. It must be an affluent area in Seal Beach.
It's a very cool little community.
All right,
It really
so
is.
I'm going to walk in. I own, let's say I was fortunate enough to own there, and I approach some realtor. I'm thinking of buying or selling this thing. And they say, don't do it. I got a bunch of buyers. We don't have no sign, no listing, no nothing. This will be perfect. And I go, yeah, that sounds great because what? The only thing I could think of is you don't have people traipsing through your house.
It's that, and also they're like, you're not going to have to paint it. You're not going to have to stage it. You're not going to have to fix this, that, and the other thing that you would normally do to make it look like a model home, which, we normally have to do. And that appeals to a lot of people. They're like, it's just faster, it's easier, it's convenient. I will take care of you. I sold your neighbor's house, right? And I did this, right? Because he did. I mean, people who pull these shenanigans, they tend to pull them, to Gina's point, in concentrated areas over and over again. So then their story becomes, I've sold 50 homes here. Not, I screwed over 50 home sellers, because that doesn't sell very well. But
No.
functionally.
But I think the biggest thing right now in the market that we're seeing immediately as we're sitting here is speed.
Yeah.
Because they can then give you that 3-day sale or
Yeah.
that 2-day sale.
Yeah.
That in a normal market like this one is 30 days.
Well, and that's what kills me, because that's why our median days on market data is so skewed, because so many of these off-market sales, these agents, they do negotiate everything off-market until it records, and then you can be damn sure they're putting it in the MLS so the world at large sees that they closed another sale.
Right.
But it goes into the MLS with 0 days on market. So if 20% of our homes
0 days on market, yeah.
Literally. So if 20% of the homes have 0 days on market because they were all done off the grid, so to speak, then that artificially skews the median days on market data.
You're the only ones I ever hear talking about this what do you call it?
Off-market,
Off-market pocket listings.
Yeah.
What percent, I must not be a statistic, but what percentage of the market, particularly the really high-end affluent market, do you think is?
The last data I found from a title company, and they get the data by researching recorded deeds. And they compare how many deeds recorded versus how many sales were reported in the MLS. And, and the difference was about 20%. So 1 in 5.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Wow.
It is a massive number. And it is artificially skewing the data. So to Jonathan Lasner's point, the data is inaccurate, but it's all that we have. But that's why you have us here to decipher it for you. So having said all of the shenanigans and stuff, Gina, is there something that you just really, really passionately wish buyers knew about working with you versus the shenanigan factory?
Yeah, there's a couple things. And let's put this, not just me, but this is our whole brokerage. This is all of us. This is what we're based on. But number one, we're going to talk to our clients, and I'm going to give them the truth in the nicest way possible with a big smile on my face. Number one. Number two, I'm not going to work with so many people that I'm not going to be able to hold your hand through the whole process.
Exactly.
Which is huge. I've known so many people that say, well, my agent never got back to me, or especially in this market, they need that immediate connection. They need that with their realtor.
You need to be an advisor who's at the ready all the time.
And in our society as it is, everything's instant. So even more so, I want to make sure that I am there for them, because when you're buying, and I do represent more buyers than sellers, when you're buying, it is nerve-wracking.
Right.
And I'm here to help you through the process and give you the truth.
And I think the challenge is a first timer may not understand that's rare.
And guidance
Yeah.
to make your own decision.
Thank you.
I think that's the biggest part is I'm going to give you the information. I'm going to give you guidance. If you ask my opinion, I'll give you my opinion. But for the most part, I'm going to give you facts. And then you're going to be able to take those and make an informed decision.
Exactly.
And I think that that's extremely important, all while holding your hand and being your counselor at the same time.
Absolutely. And people don't know what they don't know. I mean, I have seen agents in the past cherry pick through listings in a marketplace. And thankfully, with technology, this is harder to do because consumers can see every listing on their iPhone now. But back then, this guy would pull through the listings and he would pick out the ones that offered the highest commissions. And those are the only ones he would show to his clients.
Correct.
You know, which is nonsense. But people don't know that that even happens. So
Yeah, and it's more common than you realize.
I know.
It still happens.
it makes me sad.
Those are things that I am very open and upfront about.
Let's do another show just about shenanigans, just for fun.
Okay.
I'd love to hear that shenanigan because I always wondered this is back in the day when I bought mine, I couldn't go and see the MLS. So you had to get an agent, unless you wanted to drive endlessly around and look for signs, who would find you these homes.
Correct.
Who had been on the caravanas or whatever they call it and
Yes,
seen the
exactly.
houses.
Correct.
And knew what you were looking for and said, I found this one, I saw this one, you should look at this one. Now, the impulse is I can just do all that myself if I want to endlessly look through these listings
Correct.
myself.
Correct.
But I haven't been in any of these houses. I don't really understand that neighborhood or that market. And I might not be looking, like to your point, I got to be in Costa Mesa. Well, have you ever thought of parts of Santa Ana or something else instead? I wouldn't even think to look at those listings.
Yeah.
So I need some advice. But I wonder if that shenanigan trick has changed because people can go find it themselves. Does that keep the realtors more real?
Yes and no. The no is because if 20% of them are still keeping the listings off the MLS, then the buyers can't find it. And they again come back in and they can be the special guy that knows about this secret deal. The door swings both ways. It's a challenge.
Can I add to that as
Yeah.
well? Also, let's talk about Zillow and Redfin, where they're just pushing.
We don't say
their
those words on this
agents-
show.
They're pushing their agents' listings.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you why I asked, because in the great meltdown, the last great recession, whatever we called that craziness, I found to my dismay that my big broker, stockbroker, who was at one of these big houses, I won't say Merrill Lynch, but he was only recommending to me what stuff that he got a big fat commission on.
Of course.
I was so, how stupid was I?
Of
This is really good. This is the best deal. It's the best deal for him. And when it all fell south, he got fired or he disappeared, and I was stuck holding these stupid stocks that cratered.
Right. And in real estate, I understand the allure for agents to show the properties that have the highest commission. But the wisdom lies in doing the right thing by the client. And we're really candid and we tell the client, and this information is now being pushed to become public anyway. The Department of Justice thinks that buyers need to be aware of what our compensation is. So we just tell them, yeah, this one's going to pay us 3%. This one's going to pay us 2%. This one's paying us 2.5%. Once in a while, you see one where it's 1%. And the bad news is it's 1% for us. The good news is so few brokers are going to bring their clients to see that. Our client's probably going to win and get a little bit of a better purchase. They're going to get a little bit of a lower price. And we just have to suck it up and take the win and be transparent with the client and go, yeah, this Yahoo's only paying 1%. Let's take a look and see what else they're hiding. Let's do a really thorough inspection, but you may end up getting a really good buy here. And the number of times that ends up being the home that the client wants is so small that it doesn't end up hurting you anyway.
Right.
You just need to do the right thing and be candid and show all the properties. But we could go on and on and on. But we're going to have to wrap it. And Gina knows my favorite part of this every week is my own little version of the Vanity Fair's Proust questionnaire. And you've been here before, so I'm going to tweak a little bit. But remind us, what city do you call home?
I live in the beautiful city of Buena Park.
See, I love us North Orange County girls.
Yes.
Love it. And since this is a show about real estate, why do you love living there?
There's something about Buena Park that I love because it's so far northwest of Orange County. I am really 20 minutes from downtown. if there's no traffic.
Downtown
I'm
what?
Downtown Los Angeles.
Hello.
And then I'm 20 minutes here from Irvine. Could be a little less if there's no traffic.
Depending upon the time of day.
And you get to have some
definitely.
boysenberry pies.
Yeah, yes. Tom's Berry Farm is around the corner.
So free
yes.
fireworks.
Yes. I'm 20 minutes from the beach, and that side street's 20 minutes from the beach.
That's
So
awesome.
I love the location of Buena Park because I have access to the arts and everything that LA has to offer for me. I have 20 minutes to the beautiful coastline that we call in Orange County. I think our coastline's one of the best in the state.
It is spectacular. It is.
And then 20 minutes, to actually I'm like 8 minutes from Disneyland, but I have access to so much in my location, and my neighborhood specifically has been stable since the 50s. My neighborhood is mostly families, people in the area. It's a wonderful, stable neighborhood that continually appreciates on a great level. So
nice.
I love where
And
I
you know,
am.
the one thing I hear, I would never have thought of looking in Buena Park, honestly. I was always looking in South County
We
somewhere.
can show you things you would like.
Fullerton, Brea, all those markets up there. The one thing I've heard from other people, like younger people who are looking out, land. You get
Yes.
a lot.
You do.
COVID made people really think about that.
Yeah. These older homes have great lots.
That's why we
I've
got
owned a
ours.
home in Buena Park that had 9,000 square feet.
Yeah.
That'd be 5 houses where I live here.
Right, exactly. So we get to have a little bit larger ranch homes, one story.
Yeah.
Well, and moving on, I mean, since obviously we talk about you raised your family there, you love that it's a family community, and we know that you treasure your family. This is a milestone week, right? Tell us what's happening in your family.
My baby turns 21 tomorrow.
Wow.
So
That's so amazing.
officially have 2 full-grown young men, good humans.
They're such good boys.
And I feel awkward calling them children.
They're not boys
but
anymore. Yeah.
They're men.
They're not.
Men,
They're
yeah.
young men. So 21 and 23. Tomorrow's a big day for the baby, as I
Mazel
call him.
tov.
But
How
you're still
fun.
going to do his laundry when he comes home.
Oh heck no! I haven't done his laundry. I haven't done those boys' laundry since they were 13.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's a good mom. She's not stupid.
That's it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, before we sign off, please remind our listeners how they can reach you to get the best advocate in real estate in the world.
It's easy. Same place as Wendy, realveracity.com. And then my email address is Gina, Gina, at realveracity.com. And you can go ahead and contact me there, or I'm on Instagram, Facebook, etc. You can find me, Gina Oddo. It's not real hard.
I love it.
Spell it, though, for us. So.
Gina, Gina.
Because
Good
Gina
Italian
could
way.
be 1,000 different ways. Is
Yeah,
it
but,
Jeana or something.
No, it's the good Italian way. Gina. And my last name is Oddo, Oddo. Pretty simple.
She's
Okay.
a good Italian girl.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, that's a wrap. And you all know that you can listen to our podcast anywhere you most like to listen to podcasts, but be sure to check us out on our website too at realveracity.com.